Hey everybody, my name is Michael Yugudayev, and today we'll be taking a look at Backbone. Specifically, we'll be taking a look at the client-side aspect of Backbone, and it'll be part one out of a two-part tutorial. So in the second part, we'll take a look at the server-side aspect of Backbone. And what do I mean by that? Well, Backbone, we're going to take a look at the client side, which is going to be models, collections, and views. And in the next one, we'll take a look at routers, history, and the sync API. So without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about what Backbone is and why you need it. Backbone is an MPC framework that allows you to organize your code in a manner you're probably used to already on the server side in languages like Ruby on Rails, .NET, or any of those kind of languages that are a little bit more mature. So Backbone allows us to do all of that on the client side to keep our code nice, clean, and organized. In this tutorial, we're going to be building a Twitter application, but our application is only going to work on the client side. And it'll be a nice transition if you watch Rails for Zombies or any of the other tutorials for Ruby that go over how to build a Twitter application. This will be a nice opportunity to do it on the client side with JavaScript, and maybe later on you can hook it up with your Ruby code, and we'll look at it in part 2 actually, but we'll be using Node instead of Ruby. Alright, so let's get started. I'm excited. Let's get started with this. So let's switch off to our text editor, and I've already created a project, and in this project you will see I have just an HTML file with a few dependencies for Backbone, and then I have Backbone itself, which I have listed as a dependency over here. I also have underscore, which is also a dependency of Backbone, and finally I have jQuery here, which is also another dependency that Backbone needs. And I also have something called static.js. This is just a way for me to run my page on localhost versus just serving it off the file system. So you don't need to worry about that, but you'll see me using this page over here for testing. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is going to be models. What are models? Models are a way for you to store data about your objects. So we're going to get started by creating a new model. We're going to call it a tweet model, which will represent each individual tweet and store information about it. And what we're going to do, we're going to use the Backbone object, and we're going to reference the model, and we're going to extend the Backbone model. Okay. Okay, next we're going to just console log a new instance of this tweet. So we're going to say new tweet, and we're going to pass it a few attributes. So we're going to pass it the author, which is going to be Yugudayev, and we're going to pass it a status, because usually tweets have a status update. So let's say I am recording this awesome new video. Exclamation point. Let's close that, and let's take a look at what it looks like in our browser over here. Alright, so over here we logged it, and we can take a look at what it looks like. So as you see, we got this weird little object, and inside of it you'll see an attribute called attributes. That's where all the attributes for the model are going to be stored at. So if we expand that, we'll see that the author is Yugudayev, and the status is I'm recording this awesome video, as we would expect. We shouldn't reference this attribute directly. Instead, if we want to grab just say the status, we can use the method called get. So let's give it a try. First of all, let's grab all of this and throw it into a variable. So let's create a tweet variable and paste that in, and let's just get the status. So tweet.get and status. So let's save that and take a look at our console again. Alright, so as you see, it just outputs, I'm recording this awesome video. Great. Okay, so that's all good. One thing you might want to do in the object literal that we pass here is create something called defaults. Because if you don't pass any attributes and we try to reference one of them, so for example, if we don't pass anything here, so let's delete that, and we try to get the status, let's see what happens. Okay, so we save that. We get back undefined, which can be a problem if we try to do something like a replace on it. It's going to throw an error on us. So to avoid that, we can have some defaults. So we're just going to use default, and that's going to be a function, and that function is going to return an object, which is going to consist of our defaults. So we're going to have an author, and author, and it's going to be blank, and we'll also have a status, which is also going to be blank. So status blank. Okay. So now if we look back on our console, you'll see we get back an empty string over here, which is good because we can perform still operations on that string and things won't explode on us. Alright, so that's not very useful. The next thing we want to take a look at is collections. Collections will allow us to aggregate a bunch of models. So in this case, we want to aggregate a bunch of tweets. We want to have a tweets collection. So let's do that. So again, we will create a new variable called tweets list. And that's going to extend the Backbone collections.extend. And it's also going to receive an object literal. We're going to have something called model, and we're going to assign it a tweet. And what that is going to do, it's going to tell Backbone collections that all the models in this collection are going to be of type of a tweet. So it'll always be a tweet, it won't be something else. Next, we can close this off. So let's just put a semicolon there. We're going to create a few tweets to pass it to our new collection. So let's create author Gudayev, the same thing. And status is I'm recording this awesome video. Okay, and we're going to create a few other ones. And we're going to give this Neo, because we know the matrix characters love to tweet. So we're going to do that. So he's going to say, my name is Neo. And we're going to have one more. Let's capitalize the N here too, just so it's more authentic. And we're going to have one more, so let's copy this down. And this time it's going to be Agent Smith. And he's just going to say, Mr. Anderson, welcome back. Mr. Anderson, welcome back. Alright, I'm liking this. Alright, and instead of logging the status, we're going to instantiate a new tweets list, and we're going to give it an array of tweet 1, tweet 2, and tweet 3. And let's take a look at what that looks like. So if we refresh that. And I misspelled extend, so let's go back here. Actually, this is supposed to be collection and not collections. So let's change that back and let's take a look. All right, so if we expand this, we have 3 models, and you can see them over here under models. And 1, 2, and 3, and as you expect, they're the same thing as that tweet model we saw before. Okay, great. So now, if we want to display just the first 2, we can do it by calling first on them. So let's put this in a variable in itself too. And let's call that variable tweets. So let's do that over here. Var tweets equals this. And if we do tweets.first and we give it 2, for example, it's only going to give us the first 2 tweets in an array, as you can see here. If we want all of them, we can do to.json. And what that's going to do, it's going to return a regular JavaScript object, an array in this case, with all the models that are stored in this. It sounds confusing. It sounds like it is a JSON object that returns, but in actuality, it's just a JavaScript object. If you want JSON, you still need to call json.stringify on this. And that's all there is to collections, really. Next, let's make this a little bit more interactive and let the user be able to send the tweets for us before we do anything else. So let's do that. So we're going to start by creating a form, and we're going to give it an ID. We're going to give it new tweet. It's going to be its ID. Let's close that tag. Great. And that form is going to have 2 different fields. The first one is going to be the author, as we did before. So we're going to put it in a label, and input ID equals author name, and name is going to also equal author name, and we're going to also specify that it's a type of text. All right. The next field we're going to do a status field. So status. And it's also going to have an input ID equals status update. Name is equals status update. And it's also going to be a type text. Okay. So let's save that. And let's actually add a horizontal line just to separate things out, because we're going to have all the tweets below it soon. Okay. And let's just take a look at that. Okay, looks great. Now going back here, what we're going to do, we're going to eliminate all those different tweets here. I'm going to just keep one of them. Okay, and instead of getting the author hard-coded here, we're going to use jQuery to grab our author, and it's going to be author name, okay, dot value. So I'm going to grab the value, and our status is going to be the status update ID. Okay, that val as well to grab the value. Great. Now instead of, let's move the tweets collection up here. And instead of giving it a collection, we're going to just leave it empty. So it creates an empty one. And let's start off by creating, first of all, an anonymous function here. Just to make things clean, I'm going to pass it the jQuery variable. And it is going to be passed jQuery. Okay. And now we're going to just grab all the stuff we created before and we're going to throw that into the anonymous function that we just created. Great. Let's just fix the formatting a little bit. All right. So the next thing we want to do, we want to make sure that this little guy is going to be inside our document ready function. So document.ready, and it's going to have a function. Okay. Now let's grab these two guys. Oops. There we go. And we want to even put it inside our submit function for the form. So our form is called new tweet. And on a submit, we're going to create a new tweet, and we're going to push it into the tweets collection. So let's do that. All right, and let's also return false here, just to make sure the form doesn't actually submit and it doesn't redirect us to a new page, because we don't want that. And just down here, we're going to use the tweets collection, and we're going to say add tweet. That's all we really need to do. Now we can test this, and what this should do, it should log all the tweets every time we add a new tweet. So let's take a look at our browser, and let's create a new tweet. I'm creating this awesome screencast. All right. Oh, and we forgot a submit button, of course. So let's do that. So let's just create a button, post button. Okay. Let's refresh the page again. Uh, 37, we'll have a syntax error. 37. Oh yes. There we go. This should work now. Let's take another look. Oh, all right. We didn't close the document ready function. So let's do that. Okay. So that's all. All right. All right. So after we got all that out of the way, let's just say this awesome screencast. Awesome. All right. And let's try another one just for fun. All right. So I'll respell Trinity. All right. So it's all working. It gives us our objects again. So it's creating them dynamically. All right. So now comes the fun part of the whole thing. It's rendering the content to the screen. To do that, we're going to utilize something called views in Backbone. What views allow us to do, they allow us to render content into the screen. But unlike views in other frameworks like Ruby on Rails, the views are very thin in Backbone. They're more of controllers than actual views. They don't contain actual markup in them. So we'll see what that looks like exactly. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do for our views, we're going to create something called templates. So let's start off by creating a section for our templates. Temp templates. All right. And we're going to put our templates inside the script tag, and we're going to specify a type text/template, and we're going to give it an ID. We're going to give it tweet template, actually. Tweet template. And this is just going to be a template for one individual tweet. And all that we're going to have there, it's going to be two spans. Span with the author. So let's call it author. So we're going to put the author here. And we're going to output the name of the author using the less than %= sign, and which is part of the way that underscore is going to render our template. We'll take a look at this shortly. And we're just going to put the author there. And note how I'm using the same property name as in our model. And that's done on purpose, obviously. So we're going to have the author, and let's put a colon here. And then we'll just put the status update in another span. Status update. And also it's going to be called status. Okay. And let's close that span and fix up this equals and add the S to class. All right, great. So that's all there is to our template here, really. And note that I put the template inside the script tag. You don't really have to do that, but it is a best practice, because if you just put it, we can put it anywhere in our HTML code. But if you put it anywhere else, the browser will try to render it often. And this may result in some problems and just some goofy stuff happening with our markup being invalid and all. So it's a safe bet to put it in the script tag like this. So next, we're just going to instantiate our view. So let's do that over here. Let's create a new view. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. So we're going to create a TweetView equals Backbone.view.extend. Okay, and what we're going to have inside here, we're going to say that the model that attached to this view is going to be a new tweet. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create an initialize function. So initialize function. And inside of that, we're going to create a new instance variable called template, which is going to use the underscore templates. So it's going to use underscore.templates to render our template. And we're going to grab our template from the script tag that we created before. So tweet template, and let's grab the HTML of that guy. Great. What that's going to do, it's going to prepare the template to be compiled later on. And we're going to compile this template inside the render, which is something you'll want to override for each one of your views. The default implementation of render is just to return the view itself, like so. But we're going to also change the content of the element that's attached to the view, like so, by rendering the template. And we're going to bind the model to the template. So this dot model dot to JSON. And what all of this is going to do, it's going to render the template, replacing the placeholders in the templates with the attributes from the model, from the tweets model. So the status and the author will be replaced, like you would expect. And then the content of that string is going to be inserted into the element that's attached to this template. And what you also want to do here is we want to say that tag name is equal to div, because we'll be generating a new element for each tweet. So for each tweet, we'll create a div, and that's going to be this dot element here. It's going to be this div that we just created. Okay, and then we're going to replace its contents with the contents in our template. Pretty straightforward. The next thing we need to do, we need to create an aggregate of all the tweet views, basically. We're not going to use a collection this time. We're going to use another view, basically, to hold all the tweet views. So once again, we're going to create another view. We're going to call it tweets view instead of tweet view. And it's also going to extend the backbone view extend. Okay. Okay, and in here, we're going to say that the model is going to be our tweets collection that we created up above. And we're going to actually specify the element this time explicitly, because we're not going to be creating elements on the fly. So we're going to say that the element is equal to jQuery selector of tweets container. Now let's just go up and create this tweet container just below here. All we need is just an empty div with tweets container. And let's close this. Great. So next we'll also need to render this view. So let's do that. And what we're going to do here, we're also going to return this at the end. Return this. So we're going to go over each of our tweets in the tweets model. So, and we can access it from this .model inside this function. And for each one of them, we're going to iterate over it, and we're going to render it as a new tweet view, and we're going to append it to the current element. So let's do that, and let's use the self variable this time just to make sure the scope is correct of the this word. Oops. So up here, let's just add var self equals this. And down here, we're going to say self.el.append, and we're going to append new tweet view, and we're going to give it a model tweet. So we're going to override the new tweet model over here that we created. So we're going to make sure that it's one of the tweets from the tweets model. Okay. And we're going to render it. So let's render that. So I'm going to render it, and then we're going to grab the element to be added. Okay, that looks good. Just make sure we got all the F's. Looks good. All right, that all looks good. We're almost ready to give it a try. We want to be able to render it whenever a new tweet is added to the collection. So to do that, we're going to use something called events, and we're going to use it inside the initialize function. Initialize function. We're going to put it inside the initialize function of the tweets view, and we're going to say that on model.on add. So on an add event, so every time a tweet is added to the tweets model or to the tweets collection, my apologies. Yeah, every time it's added to our tweets collection over here, we're going to call this.render, and give it the context of this. So the context will be the view itself. So that's what's going to get binded to this keyword when the render function is called. So again, every time we add a new tweet, we're going to render the whole view again. And one more thing I just noticed is that just before we want to empty the element, just before we start rendering it again. So let's just do that. All right, so I want to empty the tweets container just before we start appending new tweets to it. All right, and the last thing we need to do, we need to just instantiate the tweets view. So let's call this app view equals new tweets view, and we don't need to pass it anything, and we can save that, and let's give it a try and see what we have. Okay, and awesome. All right, so let's take a look at why this doesn't work. Container, and container. All right, let's take a look at that. Okay, and the problem we have here is that we can't just render the model, we have to turn it into an array first before we can iterate over it. So to array, and that's submitted on the collection, and this is going to turn our collection into an array. This should work this time. So I'll just say that I'm recording this awesome new video. Great, so that worked. Let's try adding another one. Let's do Neo. I'm the one. Sounds more like Jet Li, but okay. Alright, so it's all working, as you can see. Let's just quickly add a style to our author. Just want the author to be underlined. So let's add a style, and author text decoration. Okay, and let's test that. So all it's going to do, okay, so it's just going to give us an underline here. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and as you can see, all of this is working and this is all fine and dandy, but the problem is we can't really edit or delete tweets. So let's add that feature while we're at it. So we're going to go down to our template over here, and we're going to add two links. One for the edit and one for the delete. So the href is going to be empty, and let's just give it a class of edit and edit. Let's put it in edit like this. Close that, and let's add a delete. Okay. Okay. So now that's all done. Let's go up to our TweetView, sorry. Okay, and we're going to add something called events, which will specify the binding between an event and a handler. So we're going to need a click event for edits, and we're going to send it to the edit function. And we're going to need a click event for the delete, and we're going to send it to the delete function. Okay. Now we need to create an edit function here, and we're going to leave it empty for now, and we're going to create a delete function similarly. And actually, while we're at it, let's add this event and do prevent default. And what this is going to do, it's going to prevent the link from redirecting to the hash URL, which we don't want to happen. Oops. Okay, and let's do that. Prevent default. Okay. So our editing is only going to affect the status. You can't really change the name, but you can edit your status. So let's do that. So we're going to use the $, which is going to be a selector specific to our view here. So right here, we're going to do this. So this jQuery selector is the same as doing the following selector, just so you understand. Okay, so it's the same thing as selecting under our element. So always look under the element attached to the view, which is going to be the new TweetView in separate divs. And then it's going to look for the edit button inside of that. So it doesn't affect any of the other edit buttons on the page. Okay. And inside here, we're going to add an attribute called content editable, all lowercase. And we're going to specify this to be true. Okay. And we also need to focus on that so that we can edit it right away. So when the user clicks edit, it'll focus them on the content editable field. And actually, this is supposed to be status. Okay, so focus them on the status and make it content editable all at the same time. The next thing we need a close function to terminate the edit selection. And we're going to terminate the edit on a blur. So when a user clicks elsewhere on the page, the editing is going to be done and it's going to be saved. So let's add an event called blur, and it's going to blur from the status, and it's going to go to the close function, which we just wrote over here. And inside the close function, we're going to grab the status. So let's do status, this dot $, dot status, and we're going to grab the text of that, and then we're going to update the model by using this .model.set. So I'm going to set the status to be the status that we just grabbed. So it's going to update our model with the new status. And next we're going to remove the content editable. So let's do that. This dot $, dot status, dot remove attribute, content editable. Okay, so remove that. Next, we want to make sure that we can also press the enter key, and the user can also finish editing that way. So we'll create another event for a key press on a status, and that's going to call a function called onUpdate enter. On enter update. On enter update. And this will check which key the user pressed, and if it's the enter key, we're going to update the status as well. So we're going to check if is equal to 13, which is the enter key. If it is, call the close function. Okay. Now, if you think about it, when we press the enter key, we don't lose focus on the field. So we need to make sure that the field loses focus as well after entering. So down here, we're going to make sure it loses focus. But there's one little issue with blurring, and it's related to how the browser cannot run JavaScript and update the UI at the same time. Therefore, if you just call the blur, the browser won't have enough time to update to actually blur the view. So we're going to delay this by 100 milliseconds using the underscore delay function, and all it is, it'll set a timer. So it's exactly like calling set timeout. And just more clear what we're doing. And what this does, it accepts a function. And in this function, we're also going to be using self, which we'll define in one moment. And we're going to do self.status.blur. So we're going to blur it after 100 milliseconds. So again, what this is going to do, it's going to hand control back to the browser rendering engine, which will have a moment to update the UI, and then we can blur it. Because otherwise, sometimes the blur function will be ignored. Okay, so let's give it a try. So in here, let's create a new tweet. Let's go back to Neo. Okay, and let's try to edit. Alright. We call it status update instead of status. So let's change this to status. And let's just try it again. Alright. So now we can edit it to no, I'm not. This is not the one, and if we click enter, it gets updated. One more thing to check is if we create a new tweet, that the model also got updated, and therefore it will render the new text we just edited and not the old text to put in before. So doing a screencast, enter. And as you see, it stays no, I'm not. And again, I can edit this. And I can click enter, or I can blur out and it'll stop editing. To do the delete, all we really need to do is we need to go to our delete. We're going to delete the tweet from the tweets collection. So we're going to do tweets.remove, and we're going to remove this .model from it. And this will remove the tweets from the tweets model. But remember, we only update the view, or you render the view only when a new tweet is added. But this time we're removing a tweet. So we need to make sure we update on a remove as well. So let's do it, and we're going to do it the same way we did for the add here. We're going to just copy this down. And we're going to be listening to our remove event instead of just the add events. Okay, and we're going to be doing the same thing. And that's all there is to it. And let's take a look at it, how this works. So over here, I'm doing stuff. Okay. I can click delete, and I can post a few of them, and I can delete them. So now that we're all done, let's take a look at what we've learned. We took a look at models, which is a way to store the state of your application. We took a look at collections, which is a way to aggregate several models together. We took a look at views and templates, which is a way to control what the user sees on the screen. And to control things, we took a look at events, which associate between models and views. In the next episode, we'll take a look at the server-side aspect of Backbone and how to synchronize the state of your application and how to persist changes so that when you refresh the screen, all the changes don't get lost and tweets actually get saved into your database. So thanks again for watching, guys, and tune in to the next episode. My name is Michael Igudaev, saying happy coding.